Rock stars Eric Andres, your guitar sage here with my beautiful bride, Melissa Peirce.
Hi.
It is April the 5th. If you don't know this lady, if you're a songwriter, or if you're an aspiring songwriter, you need to know who this lady is. She's a multi-platinum, #1 chart-topping. We can support all that with some of the songs that we'll be talking about today. She's a badass at writing songs. She's been doing it for a long time. She's one of the best songwriters that I know, and I say that because I'm a hard sell, and she's always always playing me songs that I'm just like, dang, that's such an amazing song. So we have her here today for an hour. I'm going to be asking her some questions that I think that you guys would probably ask, but maybe, but I'm going to ask it in a way that I think is going to get a lot of questions answered right away because of the way that I'm asking them. Because there's certain, as you'll learn, there's some industry stuff that when you hear people talk who are in the industry, it sounds different than someone who's kind of from the outside of the industry. So I'm going to get straight to some of the questions that you guys are going to want to get to, that I'm sure. Melissa's going to play a couple songs for us, right?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. And then we're going to take your questions in real time, okay? So, thank you, Cardigan Grandpa Eric. Yes, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So let's start off with the typical questions that I think people ask you. So you write songs for a living. You make money doing this. This is your job. This is your full-time job.
Yes.
Right? Full-time job. Why do that? Because it's different, right? When you're in that mindset for 4 or 5 hours writing a song, it's like every fiber of your being is working hard in those moments. And then there may be an hour or two in the beginning of where you're getting to know the writer, the artist, right? Kind of just kicking it and getting to know their personality and maybe how they work, right? So if I just kind of broad stroke what I think your day is, can you fill in some blanks for us, right?
Sure.
So because a lot of folks out there don't know this stuff, and we deal with this all day long, so it becomes old hat, but people want to know these things, right? So you write for a publisher, which is a company, right?
I do. Yeah.
That basically has relationships with songwriters, hires songwriters, they're on salary, and they get royalties and that sort of thing, and they have certain requirements of how many songs they need to write in a year, and you'll have like a specific either song that you need to write that day because there's an artist that needs a particular something, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that process, like what that actually looks like? So you write songs. What happens with the songs? How do you make money? For folks out there that want to know, they're songwriters. Like, what is the difference between someone who's just writing songs at home and say someone who has artist, or not an artist development deal, but a publishing deal?
Okay, so I write for a publishing company, which means that they pay me an advance, is what they would call it, instead of a salary. Mm-hmm. To exclusively write songs for that company for a period of time. So maybe, and then that depends on what your contract is. Maybe that's a year, 2 years, 3 years, more. Mm-hmm. You have to turn in a certain amount of songs a year. Usually it's 12 full songs, which would be, if you wrote it with another person, 24 songs. If you wrote it a three-way every time, then that would be, 36 songs in a year. But that's a really attainable goal because usually I turn in about 100 or 150 songs a year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and usually the day
so you're almost three to 4 times that, almost 5 times that.
Yeah, and depending on how many days a week you're writing. And I mean, it's just a job where you kind of set your own schedule as far as what opportunities you have and where your opportunities are best laid, and how much energy you're throwing at that. I mean, there's
Right.
some writers that are on the road with artists all the time,
Mm-hmm.
200 days a year, something like that are getting on the bus with artists writing with them.
Mm-hmm.
There's some writers that just write from Nashville or wherever they're at, producers that are just working out of their homes or in studios. And then, we're kind of splitting the time writing with artists or writing with other writers that are at other publishing companies that somehow all of us together have a good network of people to pitch these songs to, either via our own contacts or
What
through
do you
our
mean
publishers.
pitch? What does that mean, pitch these songs to?
So once you write a song, then you get it in a form that can be pitched to an artist.
Like a demo?
Like a demo, yeah. Or, a lot of times we're writing it with the artist, so a lot of times you'll have a producer in the room, a writer who's good at writing melody and lyric, and then, the artist.
Because if the artist isn't pleased with the song, then there's a lesser chance, obviously, that the song would be cut by them.
Yeah.
So it's good to have the artist in the room.
Yes.
Um,
Back in the older days,
Yeah.
when, it used to be a lot more of just writers
yes.
in the room trying to write a great song.
And that's changed in the
Last 5 years,
5
maybe.
years,
yeah. Where, and maybe even a little longer, maybe
5 to
10,
10 years,
yeah.
yeah.
Where now the artist, even out of the gate, they used to have things called developmental deals for artists, where artists would kind of develop and then put out their album. But now it seems like, writing with writers, the artist writing with writers is kind of their development, and then they put out an album
Right.
from there. So it's changed in the fact that I don't get a lot of songs cut anymore that I write just with other writers.
Right.
Where that used to be my bread and butter.
Right.
And now it's more with the artists.
Right. So somebody said here in the chat, I heard Tony Lucas say that songs are written by inspiration, and when you write songs for a living, inspiration hits on Mondays at 9 a.m.
That's right. Well, I think it's, you learn to just show up, that after a certain amount of time, at the beginning, I just felt like inspiration had to be there at every moment. But, through the process of co-writing, you show up and somebody's got the inspiration. You may not have it that day, but your co-writer might, or just the combination of having the people in the room creates the inspiration. I've been doing it for 20 years, and I never cease to be amazed that you walk into the room with nothing and you walk out with a song.
Yeah,
it's
you have
still magic to me.
Two or three people who are accustomed to doing it.
Yeah.
Usually just loads of experience and we'll say talent, for lack of a better word, although I don't love that word, but and they have kids they want to feed.
Yeah.
And the whole 9 yards. So
Yeah.
you guys hit the ground running like bricklayers or anybody
Yeah.
else. It's like it's time to go.
Well, and I was going to say that like, there is inspiration in the room
Sure.
always, but I always come prepared.
Yes.
Some people don't, but I always do, because,
Yeah.
in the lack of, or in the absence of some inspiration, it's good to have, it's like being on a blind date. It's good to
Yeah.
have some talking points,
Well,
if it's just,
Yeah.
nothing's coming out, having some titles, having some melodies, some things that can help spark some inspiration, because somebody else might have an angle on it that you don't.
Yeah. It's funny how people who don't understand this realm of writing or creating music or art for a living, since oftentimes people misunderstand it and they look at it as being, you don't do that with art. When in fact that's been done with art since, Mozart and before, right? Where
Yeah.
a king would commission
Yeah.
a piece to
Absolutely.
be written when they walk in for the common people or whatever, to make a difference, right? That song plays when the king walks in or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like that sort of thing's been going on for forever. You know what I mean?
And
It's
usually
like,
those artists' most popular works are the ones they disliked the most, because
Right.
they felt they were too commercial, or,
yeah. Yes, and you hear that in rock and roll. You hear that
Yeah.
in classical music. Tchaikovsky supposedly was ashamed of
of the Nutcracker. Yeah.
I think I had heard at some point Roger Waters had said that The Wall to them was kind of a sellout
Yeah.
album, which to me that's like not only the best Pink Floyd album, but maybe one of my favorite albums ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny how. So that's a great question. How do you go? And we got some questions starting to come in here too,
Okay.
so we'll get to those as well, guys. So yeah, keep those questions coming. I'm going to highlight them. How do you go from being that young, angsty teenager or young adult who's writing songs from this place of this is what my heart feels, and I'm just going to say it the way it is, to being more refined and understanding that that one song that you might have written might have been really from your heart, but it's only going to reach a few people because it wasn't written universally, and it's very whatever. It's very like one-sided or cliche or whatever. Can you, for aspiring writers out there and writers, can you kind of give some advice to what that might look like? I know that's kind of a very broad question, but how do you go from the mindset of just, bleh, this is the way I feel, I'm writing this, to Carrie Underwood has a request for this type of song?
You know,
How do you do that?
I had a friend who's a songwriter say, you know, she had been writing for years and just writing kind of those bluebird songs, right? Like the really artistic songs. And she said, nothing will teach you how to be a commercial writer more than actually going out in front of an audience and playing your songs. You know, she got asked to be an artist and to be on tour, and she was playing the side stages, you know, before the big country festivals. And you know, she said, when you're in the 100-degree heat playing for people who don't know you or your songs, you learn real quick what songs people gravitate towards and which ones they don't. They don't want to hear your sad, depressing ballad unless it is the best sad, depressing ballad that they've heard.
Right.
You know, they want to hear something fun. They want to hear something, you know, before Luke Combs goes on stage, you know.
Yes.
So, you know, it all depends on what you're wanting to write. If you're wanting to write independent music that's really artistic, there's a lane for that that can just be that, and there's an audience for that. It just depends on what you want to do. If you want to write commercial music,
But you also need to have proper expectations and not expect that the whole world's going to come over to your tiny segment of music type. Or,
it's all okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lane for everything that you want to write, and to be inspired by that. And I wouldn't recommend anybody just trying to write commercial music for the sake of doing that. I think everybody should write what inspires them, that keeps them doing it, and keeps them inspired about writing. But, you know, if you're wanting to write popular music for majority of people, then, you know, my recommendation would be to start playing those songs in front of people, and getting a feel.
Response,
and you start feeling it immediately. You can feel when a crowd is into what you're doing, even just as a writer.
Let me ask you this, because I want to get to some of these questions here. But for somebody out there who...
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, I want to say this in a way that's not going to discourage anybody, but I was talking to someone actually right before we started here, and we were talking about songwriting, and that I said everybody fancies themselves a songwriter. Not true usually with singing or juggling or knife throwing or things that are very apparent if you're not good at it, right? Guitar playing. But songwriting seems to be one of those things that everybody believes that they can do. I truly believe everybody can write a song. I know you do too. I believe everybody can, but and everybody can get better at it. And it's a craft. You you weren't born with this ability. I heard the first song that you wrote, and they sounded as good as my first
terrible.
songs, right? Every now and then you hit one where you're like, dude, that was really good for your age. You know what I mean? But like you grow in your maturity and those sorts of things. Is there any sort of advice that you can give for people out there for them to understand? Because you're not just going to be, it's pretty rare, and I don't even know if I have an example of someone who just never practiced the craft and just wrote great songs. I've never actually ever heard of that ever happening. Maybe you have, but it's a craft that you're learning. So for those folks that are like, man, I kind of think I'm a songwriter, like I have these songs in me, is there a way that they can kind of quantify to see where they're at? Number one, so they're not, how can I say this? So that they're not putting themselves making themselves better than they are at the moment so that they can stretch and become better. We don't want to fool ourselves thinking we're better than we are at a particular something, but at the same time not be discouraged. Like what is a gauge or something that somebody out there could use in order to go, okay, I guess I really need to be working on my lyrics, or I need to be working on my music more, or something. Is that enough to go on? You know what I'm saying? How can they quantify that? Is there a way to quantify that or get some feedback or something that would help?
The first recommendation I would have is, being honest with yourself, which I know that's a broad stroke, but study the greats, study great songwriting. And when you're studying that, and then you listen to something you've written, and then measure it up with I think part of being a good songwriter is your ability to realize where you're at. I don't think you can really be good at the craft if you can't analyze your own writing and go, this is where I need work.
Right.
This is where I know. If that's not something that you're particularly good at, play your songs for someone that you trust. And another songwriter said this once: if you listen, people will tell you what you're good at. People aren't good. When they compliment you, they'll say, man, that was a really good melody. They might not say that was a great lyric. Maybe listen to what people are telling you.
They're not going to tell you what you're doing bad, probably.
Right.
They're going to tell you what you're doing good.
What you're doing good. So, or they might go, yeah, that's okay. And take that and
that
go,
means
okay.
That's terrible.
That means you need to do better. But I think, especially, if you're not doing it in the, professional sense, just having people that you can play your songs for and bounce things off of and get constructive criticism, and then being able to take constructive criticism might be the most important thing. Take what somebody's saying. They're there to try to help you.
Right.
If they're saying, man, that lyric just didn't speak to me, figure out how to write a lyric that speaks to people.
Yes.
That melody just sat there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I need to work on melodies. And how do you do that? I think listening. That's how I did it. That's how I think every songwriter I've talked to, you measure yourself up to the greats.
Yeah.
You listen to the best songs, the songs that you're moved by, and then study them. What are those melodies doing? What makes that melody great? What makes that lyric special? Why does that move me? What did they do with the lyric? Did they just say it in a really honest conversational way, or did they use language that painted a picture that did it, or did they just say it outright? Art is subjective.
Right.
So it's really got to be about what moves you, and then measure yourself up to that.
No, I love that. People who understand counterfeit bills, study the real thing, right?
Yeah.
So if anything, you don't have to study all the iterations of counterfeits, because if you just study the real thing and you see, okay, this is not that, you don't have to learn what the new technologies are and what people are doing. You can just be like, well, it's not that.
Yeah.
And so that's essentially what you're saying. A couple of people, Kevin, Beck, and Justin are saying, only lyrics, only music, or both? Can a person do any of those? Meaning one
any
of those. Or combination of those.
Yeah. I write with people who strictly do lyrics, who strictly do melody, who strictly produce. Just build a track and play all the instrumentation, but don't really write melody or lyric. So, it's just, and I know people who do all of it. So, I think the more you can do, the more valuable you are. But, I think that there are definitely places where, I can do both, but I feel like I am geared a little more towards being a good lyricist. So I try to make sure I'm in the room with people, and I can write good melodies and I can play well enough to get along, but when I really shine is when I can be in the room with somebody who can really play an instrument in a way that I can't, and that inspires me and motivates me. So, I think, if you're looking to collaborate, then just looking for people who fill in the blanks of what you don't do, or how you can be a support to what somebody you're really inspired by does.
This is a really interesting one. I was told by a music writing friend that there's a formula for writing good popular songs. Is this true? This seems less artistic and more assembly line to me. What do you think? Before you answer that, The very first link in the description of this video, we created a course for such a formula. Now, now you're gonna define what formula is, right? Because there definitely are some things that it is and some things that it's not, because it is subjective and it is art. It is like cooking a meal or creating a movie or whatever. And what one person likes, somebody else isn't gonna like. But they're still just like any good solid storytelling or something. There's like 5 elements to a story with the characters and the plot and this, that, and the other thing, right? So there's like things that make a story, and things that make a song. So can you expound on that a bit, like what that means by formula, or is there a formula, or are there some go-tos that definitively would help shape something up as opposed to just bleh with my guitar and singing? Well,
for sure. I mean, I think that there's different layers of that, right? I mean, I think that there are generalities that great songs and hit songs have.
Right.
And there's outlines of certain things that you can do to make a song as commercial or popular as possible. I think that there are pop writers, I mean, we know them, that study what makes a hit song. And they, like the Max Martins and the
BPM, like they say, well, these songs are between this BPM and this BPM has this
they're
sort
this
of
fast, they hit the melody on the one on the chorus, and the very specific things that they will do every time
that don't happen, that happen the majority of the time. And so you might say that there's some sort of formula there, but
so there definitely are like those kind of things that you can do. But I'll also say you could do all of those things and still not have a hit song.
Or do the opposite and have a hit song.
Exactly. And it could follow none of those formula things, and that can be an outlier. So it's, I think that the songs that are hit songs have some element of inspiration and magic in them. But I do think that there's also, I think you could take the vast majority of hits and they would all have some things in common, which we go into in the course. That these are all things that you can do to craft a better song, that here's how you can craft a better lyric, here's how you can craft a better melody, that all kind of popular songs or well-crafted songs have these elements to them. But, as far as it being assembly line, I don't know. I think it's like at this point, I think you just kind of learn how to do certain set things, and then you kind of set it and forget it, and then you just write. Like now when I write from inspiration, I'm using all of these tools.
Right.
Just from muscle memory, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And inspiration, the first time feels different than inspiration the 1,000th time.
Yeah.
So it may feel different, but it can also be the same inspiration. It's just literally part of who you are now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's I love that. So, and also as far as an assembly line, that would be something where, okay, I got the lyrics, now you write the melody, now you create the demo and that sort of thing. And really it's happening all in tandem. So you guys might sit down at 11 o'clock, and by 3 o'clock, 2 or 3 of you have a complete song written and recorded into your phone or something like that. And from there, it used to be that you guys would go into the studio once a month. Because I remember going to the studio with Melissa, and it'd be
record like 5 songs
4 or 5
with
songs
a full
within, like,
band.
3 hours.
Yeah, in a studio with a band, and you would demo the 5 best songs that you had. But now you're almost always writing with somebody who's like a one-man band who plays all the instrumentation in Logic or Pro Tools, and then we're creating the track as we write. I was going to say also, it works all different ways. There are sometimes I get sent tracks and I write the melody and lyric over it, then someone else sings it. So sometimes it is a pieced together experience.
Well, like, so you had a song... You had a song that was played at the fireworks display, right, at Magic Kingdom for years.
Yeah.
And that was, you wrote the melody too?
Yeah, some of it, yeah.
But it was also kind of based off of this other song.
Yeah, that was used in like, oh man, I forget, Japan or something like that, Disney Japan.
Okay.
And it was part of like a show.
Written
but they
by
liked
who?
by Andy Dodd and Adam Watts.
Yeah, but the original was written by the big Disney guys all the time that are always writing.
Oh, we're talking about a different song.
Okay, you've written a couple then.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I'm talking about.
Are you talking about Alan Menken and Tim Rice?
Yeah.
That was Little Mermaid Greatest Hits.
Okay, there you go. Little Mermaid's greatest hits.
Yeah.
But okay.
So yeah, we took a piece of their song of "Kiss the Girl,"
Yes,
and then we wrote a
something
completely
else. Okay. So
original
the one for the
song.
firework display was completely original.
Kind of. It was taken from a park show in Japan that they liked the essence of it,
Right.
but it had to be completely changed. And so then we wrote a melody and lyric
That had that.
that had that, and I
vibe.
think maybe it was a part of that original song that they had liked, and then we wrote everything else
Gotcha.
around it.
Okay. So yeah, so think like if somebody says, okay, Melissa, Blake Shelton, whatever, went through a divorce as he did, or he's got married or whatever, he's going to be in the mood to sing about those sorts of things, since that's what's happening in his heart and emotionally. That's why we create music and we're expressing ourselves and what have you. So they might say, Blake is looking for an upbeat tune about his new rock star wife, and we need it by Tuesday. That's you might get something like that,
Yeah,
right? Well,
sure.
we usually have a little bit more information than that,
Yeah.
right? But like you might have something like that, then you guys would be like, okay, what kind of ideas do we have? Right?
Or they might say, we've recorded the whole album, but we're missing this one up-tempo song that, or whatever it is. Usually that's what it is that an album's ongoing, how they're recording it, and then at the end they're like, this is what we're missing and this is what we need, and then everybody tries to write for that.
Okay, and so that adds to this question that Scott's asking here. Do you start with an idea for a song, or write the lyrics, or start with a melody and put the words to it, or a bit of both?
Okay, sorry, I was reading the question. But do
Do
you
you
start with an
right down
idea? Or
You start with an
all
idea.
different ways. So some days we start with just a melody. Some days we start with just a lyric. Most days I would say we start from an idea, though. A title, and even more than a title, kind of how to write that title. Because you see the same titles floating around. So more than just having a title, people are more interested in how are we going to write that in a way that's unique or different to how we've heard
Right.
it before.
Yeah.
And then usually that's where the song starts. But sometimes an artist will come in and say, man, I've really been listening to Billie Eilish or something like that, and I'd love to have
that vibe.
that vibe in a country way. And so, you know what I mean?
That'd be weird. Right.
It's happened.
Has it
Yeah.
happened? Wow.
And so, sometimes you're pulling from like the inspiration of a vibe of a song
Yeah.
that an artist is saying, I'd love to have this incorporated into my
Yeah.
show. But most days it's starting from a title or an
Okay.
idea.
So snowballing off of what you said there, the song "He Stopped Loving Her Today."
One of my favorites of all time.
Yes, me too. By George Jones and written by Bobby
Braddock. Genius.
There's an example, right? He stopped loving her today. You might go, well, that's whoop-de-de-do. Like that happens all day long. He stopped loving her today. She stopped loving him today, and like life goes on. But the fact
But he stopped loving her today because he died. Because he was never going to stop loving.
And you find out,
Love
and
it.
you really don't find out until maybe the second verse, right?
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's
but
hard, yeah, because
what's so genius
he
about
starts
it?
dropping hints, which is
Yeah.
like foreshadowing in any great story, right? But that's the difference. Is like what Melissa's saying there. It's like someone could come in and say, "Well, I have this song, and I want it to be he stopped loving her today," and you might go, "Okay, big
Yeah.
deal." Like, yeah, but here's the deal: he loves her so much that today. They divorced years ago, but today is the day they stopped loving each other.
And I think I said that in the chorus.
In the way.
In the chorus.
Yeah.
That it's one of my favorite first lines of any song ever because it tells you the whole song.
It tells you the whole.
And you don't even know it.
And
He
what
said,
is it?
"I'll love you till I die."
That's the first lyric. It's literally foreshadowing. It
Yeah.
literally tells you everything that's going to happen, but you don't really get it. I mean, everybody says, "I'm
Yeah.
going to love you till I die." Big deal, right?
And he did because he stopped loving her today.
It's brilliant.
Well, and that's a perfect example of a lyric that's not flowery. It's not artsy, but it's so well crafted.
Yeah.
And so simple and so complex.
Yeah.
Genius, yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby
absolutely.
Braddock, man.
Love
Time
it.
Marches On.
Did he write that one too?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he wrote Divorce too. Somebody just told me that the other day. I was like,
Is that Tammy Wynette?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good, sorry.
So here we go. Was wondering if Melissa prefers a quiet space when writing or possibly meditative nature sounds in the background. I'm laughing because
we have a 6.5-year-old and there's no
doesn't
such thing as a
happen.
quiet space
No.
while writing. During COVID and everything and Zoom writing, I would be writing from the house, and it still do occasionally. And every once in a while, I won't be able to have a babysitter or something, and it is just like, just writing through madness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
he's
child
just
does
like
not.
in the back. No, he's
doesn't have
not
an off
moved
button.
by. Yeah, he's not like.
No.
Could you use some meditative
No.
space?
No.
I would love some nature sounds.
Cecilia is asking, and now I want you to be honest with this, okay? Because
Okay.
here's the deal. I don't want anybody thinking that when they're putting all this energy into something, I don't want them to think that they're getting traction when
Yeah.
they're not. And if they don't know if they know that that's not the direction to go into, what can they do? So Cecilia asked this question right here. I've just written a few songs for a musician friend. I admit I had so much fun. I'd love to continue, but how do you go about trying to sell your songs when you're not in the industry?
Okay. The answer is it's never been so easy or so hard to make money off of writing songs. You know, now we have the capability through streaming to be able to put out a song from your basement and be able to get traction, but it's just as much work as being a songwriter in the music industry, right? Like I may have more opportunities because I'm a signed songwriter in some areas, but the odds of being a signed songwriter, I think I read a statistic that was like you have a greater chance of being struck by lightning or
An
being
NFL player.
or being an NFL player than being a paid songwriter. There's only probably hundreds in the whole world
Yeah.
that do that. So, but there are people who are
making money, who are
making
living off it.
millions of
Yeah,
dollars
right.
as YouTube artists, as
Yeah.
owning their masters, meaning, you know, when you create a production on Spotify, if you have a song that takes off on Spotify and you own those masters, you can make more money than the songwriter makes as the producer and as the artist. But you've got to put in that legwork of creating a brand on your own. So it's totally possible for anyone to make money not in the music industry or in the music industry, but the level of work and commitment to doing so, to cut through the amount of
Yeah, because you don't actually
volume that's out
sell
there.
your songs. You don't actually sell your songs. Melissa doesn't sell her songs. She's commissioned to do the work. She's paid to do the work. But then the song is found by an artist via meetings, producers, A&R people, artists and repertoire. That's what that stands for. And they connect songs to artists because a lot of time artists don't write their own stuff. Sometimes they do, but they may write a mediocre song, and with folks who are passionate about writing songs, doing what they do out there, there's this glut of great songs out there, right? Doesn't seem like it when you listen to the radio, but there's a glut of great songs. It's just usually the good ones don't end up getting on the radio too much. Well,
maybe we could talk about money for just a second
Yes, yeah, let's do
to
that.
answer her question a little better of how you actually make money. So as a songwriter, you know, like he was saying, you know, I'm making in advance or getting paid to write songs. But once your songs are actually placed, an artist puts it out, you make money through a few different avenues. One is through radio airplay. So if your song is on the top 40 countdown, and whenever you're hearing a song on the radio, whenever you're hearing a song anywhere, at a club, at a concert, that's called a performance royalty. And that's where songwriters make the big bucks. That's where you're going to make the bulk of your big money, is from radio airplay.
And that's
from
licensing. So
Yeah.
like if it's being played on a jukebox in a bar, technically, legally, they're supposed to have a license that's paid each year, and it's dispersed among the songs that are on that jukebox.
Yeah, so you get paid per play, basically. As many times as that song's playing, as many times as you're hearing it. So if there's a song you hear all the time, that song's making a lot of money
On the radio.
On the radio.
Or TV.
There's also a royalty that you receive from physical sales. So, and that's called a mechanical royalty. So whenever a CD, just think of a physical thing. You know, when an album used to sell 1 million copies, you would make a certain amount of money per album.
Right.
So you make, you know, maybe $40,000 on a platinum record, something like that. Now, since streaming has kind of taken over and people don't buy albums as much anymore, there's a streaming royalty. That's something that's still being determined through the court systems. The big streaming companies don't really want to pay songwriters a livable wage to write songs. They look at it as a different kind of royalty because people are like renting it, right? More than they're buying a physical thing. So, you know, it's been a sticky number situation. But just for reference, I think a song that had something like 72 million streams made like $5,000. So, you know, it's not
made
livable.
Way more money for the artist.
But made way more money for the artist and for the record company. I mean, they probably made millions and millions off of that. So, but that's something that's being fought in court right now. So that's, as of right now, that's what's really difficult for songwriters to make a livable wage through royalties is what's going on with streaming. There's also sync placements. So if you get your song placed in a movie or on a TV show or your song's on Grey's Anatomy, that's a negotiated rate, and that's another way that you can make royalties. So those are kind of several of the main revenue streams that you make as a copyright holder as a songwriter.
Okay. Well, I want to get to some more questions here, but would you play one of your songs for us and give us a little bit of information about it, like how it came about, who sang it, just like all that good stuff, and what are you playing for us?
I think I'll play a song called Guy Walks Into a Bar.
Okay.
I wrote the song with Jonathan Singleton and Brad Tersey of Old Dominion, if you know that country band. And Brad came in with the idea that day, and he kind of said, don't think I'm crazy, but what if we wrote a song like the joke, a guy walks into a bar? And we thought, like, I cannot believe that hasn't been written. And we started talking about how you know, guys only walk into a bar for 2 reasons, either to meet a girl or because they just got broken up with. And so we kind of shaped the chorus like that. And you know, like,
so you guys sit there and you chit chat about this stuff for maybe an hour or two, and I mean, you literally formulate it like you would
because you know, you have that idea, right? And you go, well, do we write it as a funny song, like a joke song, or do we write it as a serious song? Is it a tempo? Is it a ballad? Like, what is the right feel for that song that makes that song work? And we kind of said, would it be cool if we wrote it as a serious song, like a breakup song, but tell it all in joke terms, like use as many joke terms as we can in it. And so, and that just seemed to click. And we probably worked on the angle of the song for probably close to 2 hours. And then once we figured out how to write it, the song fell out in like an hour.
Wow.
So just getting how to do it right.
I'm glad that you guys listened to him and didn't laugh.
Yeah.
This was a
totally.
number one, right?
And so this was my first number one. And a lot of times our songs, you know, like we were talking about, are either getting pitched from our company to an artist, or we're writing it with the artist. But in this case, it happened really organically, and my co-writer was playing this song at a writer's night, you know, just like an open mic night type thing.
Where?
I think it was at Whiskey Jam in Nashville, downtown. And Tyler Farr happened to walk in and heard Jonathan sing it, and he said, if you let me record it, I'll put it on my next album. And it was actually on hold
Did he know Tyler at the time? Were they buddies?
I think they were buddies.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, or at least he knew him well enough that he was coming to his writer's night.
Sure, right.
And we had just written it the week before.
Oh, wow.
And it was on hold for Blake Shelton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that, right?
Yeah. And
But
Tyler said, I'll make it a single. And so we were like, well, do we take the chance on Blake maybe passing on it and not recording it? And so
And that's
all
the politics that are involved, and there's no way to hold that song for a particular artist or whatever. And you know, so beautiful, awesome. Okay, so guy walks into a bar.
So just imagine a really big, like, husky dude
Sure.
singing this. All right. Well, the joke's on me and it ain't funny. Everybody but me could see the punchline coming a mile away. I heard it so many times I could tell it to the T. Believe me, I could sell it all day. It goes, a guy walks into a bar, orders a drink, sees a girl that catches his eye, asks her if she wants another. They fall for each other, end up lovers. They laugh, cry, hold on tight, make it work for a little while. Then one night her taillights fade out into the dark, and a guy walks into a bar. Well, I'd laugh too if my heart had let me. Keeping it light, it probably helped to get me over you. Well, I'm walking, talking, drinking proof I'm a cliche in a corner booth. Ain't nothing new. Yeah, a guy walks into a bar, orders a drink, sees a girl that catches his eye, asks her if she wants another. They fall for each other, end up lovers. They laugh, cry, hold on tight, make it work for a little while. Then one night her taillights fade out into the dark, and a guy walks into a bar. A guy walks into a bar. A guy walks into a bar, orders a drink, sees a girl that catches his eye, asks her if she wants another. They fall for each other, end up lovers. They laugh, cry, hold on tight, make it work for a little while. Then one night her taillights fade out into the dark, and a guy walks into a bar. A guy walks into a bar.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much. That's great. I love that tune. That was fun. That was fun to watch that one rise.
Oh, it was
up
so fun.
Rise up
Yeah.
the chart and just #1 party and
9 months pregnant.
pregnant.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was fun. What
That
were you gonna
was
say?
fun. I was gonna say, I was just playing a writer's night on Friday, and one of my
Yeah.
co-writers said, "We're here to show you that you too can write songs without having to play really well." We're here as an example to you that you can be successful
Just
without
write
playing
songs. Yes.
very well.
Yeah,
at
if you
all.
guys are wondering, Melissa plays this 5-string guitar. Used to be 6 strings, but this one was duplicate. I said, you don't need that string. But she plays an open C minor. And then, so like if she wanted to play a C major, you do what? You just put that one finger there.
So you just move up.
So, yeah, if it's a bar, it's a minor chord, if everything's barred. And if she's got that one finger down, it's a major chord.
And I am happy to say that I am the only person I know who plays like that.
I don't know if
I've
anybody
never
else
run
plays that
across
way.
another musician who played. My dad taught me. I played on piano my whole life, and guitar just didn't make sense to me. And so my dad said, "Here's how you could string it up, so you could play it just like the piano."
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah,
off
he's
to the
not playing
races.
around. That was great.
And back in the day when I used to write more bluegrass stuff, you could just move up the neck really fast to like
Yeah.
those chords that they use a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah.
I was in high demand for
I
the
love it. Yeah, 'cause you've written
for the
some
bluegrass
really,
stuff.
some cool bluegrass stuff too. Sonia, hey Sonia, she's been in our chat a lot here lately. She
Sonia.
said, she's saying I'm finding it's harder to write of my actual experience than when I imagine it. What's your take, Melissa?
Man, I think both work great. I mean, I think Diane Warren, who's never like, I think like really had like like the love of her life type thing or anything like that, have written some of the biggest love songs of all time.
Yeah.
I think being able to imagine it is...
Yeah, she's saying it's
best.
harder to write from her actual experience.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think just being able to draw on an emotion, you don't have to have gone through something to be able to draw on the experience or the experience of the emotion behind that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think some people have a hard time with that of the actual experience because they don't want to feel those things again.
Sure.
But if you go back to that time, if you have a specific reason as you want to write something, maybe coming up with all those things that you would say about that experience, because you know, my heart is broken. It feels like it's been shattered into a million pieces. Whatever. Like, this is how we express ourselves, right? Is we're very flowery with the things that we say because we want people to understand. So
well, and I think that there's something about being, we've talked about it before as writers, like being too close to the fire. And, you know, when you go through something as a creative person, like losing someone or something that's really, it's like you're too close to it to write about it. That to write about it, nothing seems to hit the emotion right enough, and to write about anything else seems trivial.
yes, yeah.
So it's like
Quandary.
it's a really hard place to get past when something happens to you that's so emotional that you want to write about it,
Yeah, 'cause
but that you don't feel like you can do it adequate justice
Yes.
because you feel so much of it. So and a lot of those
Co-writing
times
can
co-writing
help
helps
with
that,
that,
and
yeah.
somebody can kind of, who's a little more removed from it, can help
Yes.
you shape those thoughts in a way that you can't.
Yeah, because they're outside of it, looking in there. So,
Yeah.
no, that's not weird.
You can
That's
be
how
too
we-
close to something. That's
When inspiration comes, the verse and or chorus seems to come, but parts like the lift, the bridge, etc., seem almost impossible. How do you approach this?
when inspiration comes.
You know,
the
they get
verse
the
and
first
chorus.
part,
Yeah.
right? So, I can.
Man, sometimes I put it down and come back to it. Sometimes, you know, having a co-writer that can kind of bring a different element to it. Sometimes just getting outside of what the verse and chorus melody is and just playing the chords, maybe even in a different rhythm or in a different, just something that takes your mind out of
inspires you, gets you out of the groove.
get you out of the groove, because you
yeah.
can kind of be in this groove that you're like, oh, I've exhausted what the melody is in the verse and chorus, and sometimes just switching up the chords or switching up the rhythm can kind of help get you out of that.
Yeah, and
Right.
if you know what chords are available in a particular key, which I think you go over that in the
Yeah.
chorus. I say you go over that in the chorus. Like, okay, if you're in the key of C, here are the chords that you usually would find. So if you have that course, it's $9.99 today. It's normally like, I don't know, $90, something like that. It's massive price, massive discount today. But you go over that, and so when you know what the chords are, I can tell you a trick that I do is if I'm playing, if my verses are C, A minor, F, G, and it's in C, A minor, F, G, doing that all the time. If I want to bring it to a new place in a new section, almost always the very first thing I do is go to some other chord, either that hasn't been played yet, or if it's in those sequence of chords, not going to the C, not starting it off on the C, because what happens is your ear gets accustomed to that cadence, right, of landing on that chord at that time, and then another chord, your ear wants it to go someplace different, and so usually the lyric's going to be different. So that's what I've done. But you're the pro. I mean, I've written hundreds of songs. You've written thousands of songs. So is that something you think of, like when you're coming to a different part? Did you purposefully look for another chord? Or is it just fun?
Just
You don't
depends
even
on
think
the
about it,
song, but
probably.
yeah. I mean, you know, I think especially with a bridge, you're thinking what hasn't been addressed lyrically or melodically at this point in the song. So if you've kind of done the same chords for the verse and a chorus, maybe you want that departure to take you somewhere different for
Yeah.
a bridge, you know, or
Yeah.
what rhythmically have I not done? It's usually the bridge is a place for something a little bit different. So that's a good place for it.
Rhythm Bob is asking, how do you know what the artist is looking for in a song?
Okay, so there's something that kind of circulates in the industry called a pitch sheet. And so, different companies will compile basically who the artist is, who their producer is, what record label they're on, and what they're looking for according to their A&R, artist and repertoire representative, or what the artist has said directly what they're looking for. So sometimes it's word of mouth, and an artist will kind of put out to their writer friends, this is what I need. Sometimes you find out in the room, writing with them, they'll say, this is what I need, and sometimes it's on a pitch sheet.
Okay. Have you heard of Stock Aitken and Waterman? I don't know who that is.
What's that?
Right here. Stock Aitken and Waterman, they had a particular formula they called the Hit Factory.
Yeah, I mean,
You know who
there's.
that is?
I don't know who that is, sadly, but I know that there are things out there that like definitely focus on like here's how you write a hit. That these are the things that all hits have, which we
Yeah.
talk about in the course too. But
Yeah.
I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective. I mean, I think there are definitely things that every song should have, but I also would hate for anybody to get so caught up in formula that they lose inspiration.
Yeah.
So I tried
absolutely.
in the course to balance. These are craft things that you should and could do if you want to create a memorable song, but to not lose focus on writing what moves you, because I think those are the songs that cut through. So
Absolutely.
even after doing it for 20 years, I don't think I've ever had a song cut that was just focusing on craft. And I've had those songs that are work songs that were like, we're trying to hit these certain marks of what an artist says they want. They end up feeling contrived.
Yeah.
They don't feel honest. And so I think I focus more heavily on writing what you're feeling led to write, and here's how you can craft it so that it's a well-written song,
Right.
and add that to your inspiration as opposed to just focusing on a hit formula.
Yeah.
They're out there for sure, but I feel like you lose a bit of inspiration when you're just focusing on those things. It's all
Absolutely.
just perspective.
Speaking of formulas, we heard years ago, 2-3 years ago now, that Spotify had this artificial intelligent engine. Rhythm Rob is asking, is that something? Have you heard of that? I mean, I've heard.
Yeah,
of it,
I've
but,
heard
like,
of
have
it.
you
There
heard of
are-
any songs come out of it?
No.
I mean, melodically and chordally.
Yeah.
That's real simple. That's just basic math, and so like that literally could be done all day long. The stuff that I teach in my courses teaches you that ideology to understand. Okay, these chords work well together. So like if you put that into a computer and said, here are a bunch of hit songs, and it analyzed the beats per minute, and analyzed the chords, and it analyzed the melodies. Yes, there's an infinite amount of things that can happen, but more often than not, there are certain chords that are always played, and melodies that do certain things. You teach that in the course.
Yeah. And you can't teach AI how to feel something.
Exactly,
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's going to have all the components, like we were talking about with the hit formula. It'll have all
Mm-hmm.
the components of what a hit song is, but it's just going to be missing that little bit of something that makes something.
Sure, that
special.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Shay is saying, how would you recommend finding a songwriting mentor?
I talk about this in the course with a lot of different resources, but my number one thing for finding a mentor would be NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association International. And I should just be a spokesperson for them because I think they are the greatest resource that an outside songwriter that's not in the industry could have. It's maybe $100 or $200 for membership. You can use their writer rooms when you come to town. You can meet other unsigned writers. You can have online pitch sessions with publishers. You can have your songs looked at and critiqued by publishers. They have songwriting mentor sessions. It's just the best one-stop shop for anyone who's looking for a little bit further connection and networking.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to, it's in all genres. It doesn't have to be country or country songwriting.
Right.
I think it's the best bang for your buck of finding somebody that can help mentor you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I joined NSAI. I'm not a member now because I'm just not writing songs.
Almost anybody who started out writing
pretty cool,
songs
really cool resources,
joined the NSAI. I've heard so many songwriters talk about that, and artists, that's how they met most of the people they ended up working with or met a publisher through.
Yeah, that's a great resource, y'all, because a lot of people say, well, I need to have my songs heard, right? And you don't have somebody who's in the industry, meaning they're going to have a more refined ear, both for lyrics and the melody and that sort of thing. So yes, it's going to be a harder audience, right? But that's what you want. You want the truth, right? You don't want all your local folks to say you sound great, and then for 10, 20 years you're writing songs and then nothing ever happens. And I mean, unless that makes you happy, that may just make you happy just to do that. But NSAI is, you literally, back in the day, you would send in a cassette, right, or CD, and now they probably do it online. I would imagine you probably submit it, but I just don't know. But they at least had in the day, they had publishers that would listen to songs outside, which is very rare because in Nashville, they're not accustomed to doing that due to copyright issues and what have you. Someone might say, oh, you stole my song. So the fact that they would listen to outside songs, which means they're not songs that they have that are published with them, it's a good resource. It's a great resource because you get all that feedback back with your song. Like, hey, this is great, but here's what I would suggest doing. So that's NSAI, National Songwriters Association Incorporated, right? International. Okay, good. All right, let's take one more question, and then would you play one more song for us?
Sure.
Okay, beautiful. And then we'll head out, friends. I just wanted, Melissa was available today, so we said let's make the course on sale this week for you guys. If you guys want to get into this course, it is the best-selling songwriting course on Udemy, and I don't know how many thousands of students you have in there now, but it's pretty awesome. And you've got a great rating, and people love the way Melissa teaches. She's you taught at the college level and mentored songwriters and all. So
Spidey's at grandpa's today.
Yes. So, Melissa, would you? Is there another tune that you would want to play for us?
Sure. What do you think, Lady A? You want me to play that?
Yeah. So tell us about this one too.
So this song I wrote with my friend Ben West and John Green, and Ben West lives in Detroit and John Green lives in the UK. So getting us together all in the same city at the same time only happens about once a year, and I'm sure that the day that we wrote this, our publishers wanted us to write an up-tempo positive hit for summer.
Nope.
That is not what we wrote. We wrote a sad ballad, but we left the room going, I love this song, and it's special to us, and it felt like something to us, but we went, who's looking for a sad ballad in the middle of summer? And so we thought nothing would really happen with it, and Charles Kelly of Lady Antebellum, or Lady A, was recording a solo album. He said he wanted to record it, took it into the studio, and called back and said something just didn't vibe about it.
Right.
And so I'm going to have to let the song go. And so we went, he said kind of as a side note at the end, he said, but maybe in like a year and a half when Lady A is looking again, maybe we'll take a look at this song together as a group.
Which in Nashville means
that's never going to happen. Yeah, he's never going to remember the song a year from now. So we were like, thanks.
I remember you saying that. You're just like,
say goodbye to that.
Goodbye.
And he called back a year and a half later, and he said, I think I figured out what wasn't right with it. I think it's a female sentiment, and I think Hillary needs to sing it, and we need to back her up. And my late friend Busby, who passed away a few years ago, produced this and just produced it with an orchestra and strings and just did such a beautiful job song. That it's one of my favorites.
And it's called Hurt.
It's called Hurt. They played it on Late Night with Seth Meyers. Yeah, it's called Hurt.
Beautiful.
spark I can't undo. It always starts out simple like a conversation, and before I know it I'm lost in your illumination. If you catch my eye across a crowded room, I'll fall into the atmosphere surrounding you. And if you pull me close just to disappear, the chances are I'd wait for you 1,000 years. If you light the fuse, you know that I'll react. If you're reckless with your love, just to take it back, you could hurt somebody like that. You're a carnival on a summer night, gone too soon. Every time, yeah, it's beautiful how you burn so bright, but then the wasteland you leave behind. If you catch my eye across a crowded room, I'll fall into the atmosphere surrounding you. And if you pull me close just to disappear, the chances are I'd wait for you 1,000 years. If you light the fuse, you know that I'll react. If you're reckless with your love, just to take it back, you could hurt somebody like that. Ooh, 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 ooh. If you call me up at 3 a.m., I'll run right to the rescue time and time and time again. If you pull me close just to disappear, the chances are I'd wait for you 1,000 years. If you light the fuse, you know that I'll react. If you're reckless with your love, just to take it back, you could hurt somebody like that. You could hurt somebody like that.
Beautiful. I love that song.
Thanks,
So
Aaron.
great. Thank you so much for playing that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for letting folks know that someone was asking here if we collaborated. So I just put up our little
Yes.
our little link there. Yeah. So you'll see at 103, I just posted a link to some songs that we did online. We had a
Yeah.
little project. that
I
we
loved that.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It was so
That was
fun.
so fun. So check it out. The name of the band is weird, but there's a whole story behind that. But it's cool stuff, man.
It is. I love that stuff.
Yeah, we did like four tunes, but we
That was when we had time
When we-
to do those kind of things together.
before little Eric came along. Indeed.
He's our soundtrack now.
Exactly. Speaking of which, you got to go get that little guy. So, friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Really good questions. Again, thank you so much, Melissa, for
Thank
being
you for
here.
having me.
Yes, and don't forget the course is on sale right now. It will end on Saturday, so don't slack. Don't not hit that link. It's $9.99 today. Normally it's I think $90 for that course. It's a best-selling songwriting course. So if you're an aspiring songwriter, if you are a songwriter and you're just looking to get some skills, this lady will show you what's up, because she's an amazing teacher, obviously an amazing songwriter. So again, guys, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you, and see you the next time we see you.